Hey everybody, and welcome to Meals with Melissa, where we give you healthier versions of the things that you love to eat. So today's recipe is awesome. I'm gonna admit I'd never made butternut squash soup before, so it took me a minute to see if I could do it. But you know what, it's not that difficult because of course I don't do anything complicated. So now I've already done a little bit ahead just for timing, but I will tell you exactly what to do. Now the cool thing is we're using foods that are available in fall. We're using butternut squash, so you can actually find it at your grocery store if you look. So I've already put the oven on 375. I'll just show it to you here really quick. Now it calls for like a 3-pound butternut squash. And since I had a girlfriend of mine give me a bunch from her garden, which of course is the best way to go, I used the bigger one for my little practice round. And so I had a little bit smaller one, so I cut 2 smaller ones. And here's how they look. So I have cut the top off the butternut squash, cut them in half, scooped out the seeds from the inside, and then along with some of the other vegetables here, the fruits that I'm going to tell you about, I actually put some olive oil and some salt and pepper on there, put them face side down, cut side down, to bake them. I also, on the same tray, I noticed I'm using my favorite tool, parchment paper. Love that stuff. I've also included some cut. Now I had gala apples, that's just what I had on hand. The recipe calls for Honey Crisp or something slightly tart, but honestly I don't think it matters. It tastes amazing anyway. It also calls for shallots, and I had onions. So wow, you know, a little bit of substitution there, but I don't care. It actually turns out great. So I baked those, like I said, coated in a little bit of olive oil, salt and pepper, and then baked those at 375 for about 40 to 45 minutes, and they turn out great. Actually, you just want to make sure that the squash, when you poke it with a fork, is nice and soft, and it worked out great. So I have my giant Ninja that I don't use very often. I have a personal size that we use all the time. But for this particular instance, I needed something a little bit bigger, and I bought this a couple years ago and I just never seemed to use it. But it works better than a regular blender because, yeah, I've had some interesting experiences with that. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna take the flesh of the butternut squash, and you're just gonna scoop, like I said, it's nice and soft once it bakes. I'm going to scoop it out and put it in my blender. Now, I will tell you, it's a little bit difficult when it is raw to cut into the size that you need. So one of the tips that I found was to nuke it for about 3 minutes in your microwave to soften it just a smidge to really get it soft enough that you can cut it. Still doesn't make it super, super easy, but I was able to make it work just fine. So I'm going to take out basically, I wouldn't say the guts, that's probably the seeds and whatnot. This is a little easier to do over here on my pan. So I'm going to take some of that. Meanwhile, along with the parts of the squash, I don't know what you call it, I'm also going to include all the apples and the onions that I baked as well, or roasted. So I'm going to throw those in there as well, and I will tell you what other pieces are. Yeah, this is a full recipe. I did not do a half recipe just because I had enough butternut squash. So I was able to do a full recipe to try it out yesterday. Okay, so let's get the rest of this. This actually probably could have roasted just a little bit longer, but we'll take what's soft enough and then we'll just get it made so you can see what we're doing. Okay, so with this, yeah, this one just, I'm gonna probably end up throwing these back in the oven for just for a little bit. They probably should have cooked a smidge longer. This right where it's thinnest in the butternut squash itself is about right. So I'll probably just make kind of a smaller batch here. But, okay, so to that now, some recipes call for vegetable broth. Again, I tend to use what I have on hand, which is we tend to use a ton of chicken broth. So I'm going to use that instead. So to this, I'm going to add, okay, actually I'm gonna really quick just kind of blend it together just a smidge before I start adding the other ingredients. So again, I don't ever use this particular tool. There we go, look at that. Very cool. All right, let it just for a sec. Let's add, so it calls for 2 cups of vegetable broth. Again, I'm using chicken broth. I've actually seen both. I'm not adding 2 full cups since I'm not doing the full batch, but I'm also going to add it as to the consistency that I like. So if you like a little bit thicker soup, you can do a little less. If you like a little bit thinner soup, you could do a little bit more. To that, I'm gonna add, actually I'm gonna do that after I'm done there. I'm going to add 1/8 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. So I've actually got one of those right here. Sometimes it's hard to find a teaspoon that small. Just keep looking. It's really not that difficult. So I'm gonna throw a little bit of the nutmeg in there. I'm also going to add, it calls for half and half. I choose to use coconut milk, unsweetened coconut milk. So again, I'm just gonna add, it calls for a fourth cup. I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it today. Again, I've already used a little bit last night. And then I'm just gonna blend that together really, really well. Now, if it's already warm, you can kind of just serve it that way. Or of course, if you kept it in the fridge or whatnot, you can actually heat it up in the microwave when you go to serve it. Oops, let's make sure I get that on correctly. Like I said, I don't use this very often, so. All right. Perfect, all right. I'm just gonna give that a quick minute to really thoroughly get through there, and then I'll show you what it's all about. So I'm gonna grab a bowl and just pour some in. That's as easy as it is, really. I mean, honestly, the hardest part is cutting the butternut squash and getting it prepared for the oven. So not too entirely difficult. And like I said, you can add as little or as much of the liquids. If you like it a little creamier, you can add more of the half and half or the coconut milk. It's probably a little thick here. I think I'm gonna go back and just add just a little bit of the vegetable broth. But honestly, it tastes amazing. So that apple just adds just a little bit of natural sweetness to it. I'm not adding anything other than those natural sugars from that. And it turns out great. So, and then you can salt and pepper to taste, right? Super, super simple. I will include the recipe down below here in a minute. If you want to try it, like I said, you can find butternut squash in the stores right now. So have an incredible weekend. I know Thanksgiving is coming. Hopefully you have some things to be amazingly grateful for, and we'll have something fun. Maybe next week will be something with pumpkin, because of course, some of us girls just like that pumpkin spice thing. So have a great weekend, you guys. That is Meals with Melissa. Have a great day.